Hi teacher friends, Sharon Curtis here and welcome back to my channel. Here on this channel we try to talk about all things teaching. In particular I teach mathematics, but for right now at the beginning of my channel I thought I'd focus on something that everyone could be interested in, which would be classroom management. And it's the number one thing that new teachers seem to struggle with the most. So in the last video, we talked about entry routines and how that first 5 minutes of your class can be some of the most important minutes of your class. So today, we're going to talk about the last 5 minutes of your class, your exit routine. So the first 5 minutes kind of sets the tone for how the rest of the period is going to go. But then that last 5 minutes sometimes can be a little bit of a free-for-all. If you've ever had kids start packing up their backpacks and things before you were ready for them to, and then you haven't quite finished all of your lesson, and so you're trying to cram in as much as possible, it can be a really tough time of the day. Kids start getting up, throwing things away. So let's talk about today 8 tips that I'm going to give you that might help you during those last few minutes of the class period, okay? And might help you with your classroom management and make you feel less stressed at that part of the day. Whether you're an elementary school teacher and you have that one exit period at the end of the day, or like me, you teach middle school and you have that last 5 minutes of the day every period, okay? So tip number 1 is I want you to have a time for your exit routine, okay? I want you to think about how long it should reasonably take your students to get packed up, and I want you to plan it. So for me, I usually give them about 2 minutes. I know what time the bell is going to ring, and then I don't let them start packing up until 2 minutes. If they do start packing up at the beginning of the year, that's something that I nip in the bud like super quickly, and I let them know, hey, it's going to take us even longer to get out of here, even if that bell rings, because you guys are packing up, wasting my time, and now I've got to wait on you to be quiet. Maybe you have to take some other things out of your backpack that you've already put away, but we still need. So you really have to train them about what time we're all going to start packing up. And at the end of the day, like I have to put chairs up on tables. So my students know that they can't start putting the chairs up and packing up until the last 2 minutes of the period. So middle school kids are clock watchers. They're going to let you know when that 2 minutes is there and when it's time to go. So even having that helpful kid who's always ready to go, have them be your clock watcher, have them be your timer and give you the signal when it's time to pack up. But you really do have to train them. And some of my students, we assume they know things, that packing up at the end before someone is done, we assume that they know that that's not polite. But some of them really don't understand. So they've never been taught that. So you got to take that opportunity to actually teach them what the proper etiquette is. So set a time. For me, it's 2 minutes. If you teach science and maybe you have experiment day and you've got all this lab equipment out, you may need longer at the end of the period. But time it. However long it's going to be for you. Tip number 2, have a backup plan. Okay, so let's say my lesson did not go as long as I anticipated that it would, and now I have this extra time at the end of the period. This is not good, because unstructured time is the time when students tend to get into trouble the most. So you want to make sure you keep it as structured as possible. So if you have time left over, you need to have a plan. How are you going to use that extra time? So you could have a set of video clips that apply to your teaching area that would be short that you could show. You could do a quick verbal check for understanding. You could have a quick game that your kids like to play at the end of the period. That would be something that would help you to end in a more positive way than just having kids sit and talk to each other for the last 5 minutes. And especially if your administrator walks in, they like to see that bell-to-bell instruction. So making sure that you have a plan for any extra downtime that you might have at the end of the period. That's tip number 2. So tip number 1, time it. Tip number 2, have your backup plan. Tip number 3 is have a plan for your materials. Okay, so let's say you have your students sitting in groups they should have someone who is the materials person who you know is going to get up and throw things away. Maybe you have one person who's the designated, like, carry the trash can around the room or whatever. So make sure you have a plan for collecting any materials that you've used that period. If you don't have any materials, that makes it easier, but for a lot of classes, like, we'll have out manipulatives or we'll have out protractors and that sort of stuff. So make sure that it's very clear from the beginning what your expectations are for materials. So have a plan for your materials. That's tip number 3. Tip number 4, have students help. If you have that one kid who just can't sit still any longer, make them your helper. Have them help you collect the things that have been passed out, or go around the last few minutes with the trash can and make sure that everybody else has cleaned up their area. Utilize that extra energy that they have. And plus, it's going to make it nice for your next class. So tip number 5, reset. Reset yourself. So in the intro routine, we talked about how you need to be at your door at the beginning of the period to greet the class that's coming in. So how do you do that and also reset your classroom from the last period? So for me, I'm like erasing everything all the math problems we worked out so that I can reuse my iPad or the board or whatever. So make sure that you have that planned into your time. So once you have students trained in how they're to pack up, then you're going to use that last couple minutes, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, whatever it is, to get yourself reset for the next period so that when the time is up, you can go to the door and you can greet students that are in the next class coming in, and it'll help reduce your stress a lot once you get into that habit and that routine. So tip number 5 was to make sure that you reset your area. Tip number 6, inspect and affirm. So once I have my stuff reset, maybe takes me a minute to get myself reorganized, my slides back to the beginning or what have you for the next class, then I'm going to use the next minute before the bell rings to walk around the room and inspect. I'm looking to make sure their calculators are still on their desk because sometimes they disappear accidentally. I'm going to make sure that there's no trash left on the floor. I'm going to make sure that everything is put back the way it is supposed to. And it doesn't take me very long, and I kind of do it as I'm walking back to the door. So, and as I'm doing it, I'm making sure that I am giving affirmations to those students who have done what they've supposed to. So yes, thank you group 2 for cleaning up. Your area looks terrific. Oh, thank you Joseph for picking that up off the floor. I appreciate you. It's just making sure that you are reaffirming and giving positive reinforcement for those things, the expectations that you have, so that they'll want to continue that. I mean, it seems like a small thing, but it really does work. Even in middle school, my 7th and 8th graders, it still works with them as well. Tip number 7, be systematic, okay? Dismiss students in a systematic fashion. It should not be for a free-for-all to get to the door. So if you are standing at the door, they are not going to run you over. And you have to train them in how dismissal from your class is going to go. No matter what any other teacher does, in this class, I'm going to dismiss you by group, or in this class, I'm going to dismiss you by rows. Whatever your plan is, and the kids understand. And I let them know, as long as you guys are seated and quiet, I promise you it's going to take us like 15 seconds to get everybody out. We can't all go out the door at the same time. Somebody's going to get hurt. So you try to make it as systematic and structured as possible, because that's going to keep those classroom management issues to a minimum. So that was tip number 7. Be systematic in how you dismiss students. And tip number 8, end on a positive note. Sometimes those last few minutes of class, they can be very stressful, not just for you, but for the students as well. So make sure that you take that time to launch students into their next class, into the world with something positive, or a smile. So I like to say, have a great day. You guys were awesome today. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday, or you were amazing. I can't wait to see you guys tomorrow. So just make sure that you send them off out into the world with a positive thought and remind them that they did well. Well, what if they didn't do so well, right? So if they didn't do so well, sometimes I say, you know what, guys, we had a rough day today, but tomorrow's a fresh start and things are going to be better, because every day should be a fresh start, especially when we're talking about classroom management type issues. So really quickly, just to review one more time, the 8 tips: time your exit routine, decide how long you want to give them to pack up, have a backup plan in case you have extra time, okay, so that you don't have any unstructured time. Make sure you have a plan for any materials that you're going to collect. That was number 3. Have students help you. Tip number 4. Tip number 5, reset your own slides and your own area during that time as well to reduce your stress. Tip number 6, make sure you inspect their areas and just give them some positive reinforcement for doing what you asked them to do. Tip number 7, be systematic in how you dismiss them. You should be near the door and you should have a way to dismiss them that they can expect to be the same every single day. And tip number 8, and on a positive note, everybody likes to have positive things said to them, and it's going to make you feel better because you're not feeling like you're yelling at the end of every class period, and it's going to make them feel better too because they're leaving on a positive note. So if you have any comments about things that you do at the end of the period, I would love to hear about them in the comments section. And if you enjoyed this video, please make sure that you like and subscribe so that you'll be notified when the next video comes out. Thank you so much.